Today, Republican Senator Bill Cassidy said this about Donald Trump's Iran deal.
The details that I've seen so far look awful. This will go down as a tremendous foreign policy blunder. Iran ends up stronger. Our allies in the region are weaker. And Iran has learned that if they're willing to grab that Strait of Hormuz and choke it off, they can get the Western world to dance to their tune. I think it's a deep mistake.
Leading off our discussion tonight is Ambassador Wendie Sherman, who, when serving as Deputy Secretary of State in the Obama administration, was a top negotiator on the team that finalized the Iran nuclear deal. Ambassador Sherman, thank you very much for joining us on this important night. Donald Trump began his war demanding the unconditional surrender of Iran. What did he get?
I think he's the one who did pretty much an unconditional surrender. You know, people ask me all the time, and I'm sure they ask Secretary Kerry the same thing, do you feel terrible about what's happened? And my answer to that always is the greatest hurt and pain is what Donald Trump has done to the American people, what he's done to our economy, what he's done to our democracy, and quite frankly, what he's done to the world's economy. I think probably at the G7, the leaders were glad that the Strait of Hormuz was going to open. Of course, it wasn't closed before President Trump started this war. So, of course, they want the economy to get better. But this is not a deal. This is not an agreement. This is a set of principles that require tedious, patient, complex, expert-driven negotiation. And we haven't seen any of that so far.
Let's listen to what Donald Trump said today about enforcement of the deal.
So you're threatening to bomb Iran if they don't comply, but there's nothing enforceable in the deal itself. Is that correct?
Doesn't have to be. I let him know. I said, look, if you don't adhere to the agreement, I don't want to do that, but we're going to bomb the hell out of you.
He's saying there doesn't have to, exact words, there doesn't have to be anything about enforcement in the deal.
That's so naive, it's sort of stunning. You don't know whether a deal has worked, an agreement has worked, unless you have very, very good monitoring and verification. Back in the time of the JCPOA, we had the most extensive monitoring and verification, not only by our intelligence community, but by the International Atomic Energy Agency, including electronic means, including people who could go in any place, anytime, and see what was happening, people on the field, on the ground. So, yeah, if your only answer is we're going to bomb them again, you may not even know when somebody is cheating on you unless you've got those eyes on the ground all of the time and really, really good verification and monitoring. You know, you said that the agreement was 18 pages long, which is true. That's the basic text. But when you add all of the annexes, which have all of the technical detail, everything from nuclear enrichment to verification, it was 159 pages. That's how much detail there has to be.
Let's listen to what Donald Trump said about the economic catastrophe that he was trying to avoid by simply ending his war.
The one thing I didn't want to see is I didn't want to see economic catastrophe. If you kept this going, that could have happened. But all I know is every time we talked about the possibility of peace, the stock market shot up like a rocket ship. It never went down. They didn't like it. The people, you know, the stock market is more brilliant than anybody there is, including the people on the stage, other than me, of course.
That's the first time a president of the United States waging a war has referred to the stock market as the barometer for him about how well his war was going.
Look, he's talked a lot today about how he didn't want to be Herbert Hoover. He didn't want to be the person responsible for another crash. We've seen him all through these 110 days, usually on a Friday. He wants the stock market to end up. And so he says, we're almost there. We've almost got a deal. And then if it starts to turn down on Sunday night, we'll hear it again. Everything has been, if you just sort of chart this, connected to the stock market. Well, you know what? Even though people have 401ks, even though they're in the stock market, what they really care about is what their groceries are going to cost, what gasoline is going to cost so that they can take their kids on a summer vacation. Farmers care about what their fertilizer is going to cost, and hospitals care about how much the helium is going to cost for the MRI machine that your loved one might need for surgery. So he's just got the wrong metrics, but this is how he thinks about life. It's not how normal people live.
آنچه در مورد ما میگویند.